Hi there, it's Justin Lubino with Senior Advisors, and wanted to create this video about the recent Inflation Reduction Act and the impacts to Medicare. A few weeks ago, I created a short video when it was still in its draft version and highlighted a couple of quick impacts with Medicare. Now that the bill has been fully finalized and signed, I wanted to create another video here to go through the things that are in the final bill for the Inflation Reduction Act specific to Medicare. So this is not going to cover the other areas of that bill, and trying to keep it to just a few minutes here, try and simplify it for you. So the highlight of those Medicare impacts, it's all really related to drug costs. And this list here is what we're going to walk through. The first item is the $35 per month insulin cap. So this is actually something that's been in place since 2020. It was called the Senior Savings Model. And this is going to continue to be extended now through legislation. So that's included in this bill. So that's a good thing for those folks that are taking insulin. We'll see that cap of up to $35 per month. The other change, and this is all kind of chronological order, is vaccine cost sharing starting in 23. The vaccines that are deemed recommended by the CDC essentially for adults, we're going to have a zero cost sharing. So that exists today with Medicare for certain vaccines, but there are other vaccines that folks have to pay for under their Part D drug plan and so forth. So this is intended to put that to zero cost sharing for those approved vaccines. Part D Premium Stabilization. So this is interesting. So because of some of the changes we're going to talk about down here with the Part D structure, they had to put a provision in there to limit the increases on the Part D premiums. So starting in 2024, the biggest increase can be up to 6% from the 2023 premiums for the plan. So you can't have like a massive increase on those premiums. So this is going to be really interesting in the next couple of months when the 2023 premiums are released, because the carriers are probably going to have to anticipate this change coming, and we may see some substantial premium increases coming up for the 2023 year because of this stabilization requirement starting in 24. The actual Part D structure is changing pretty dramatically as well, which I'm going to walk you through in the next couple of slides. There's one big change coming in 24 where catastrophic coverage is going to go down to basically zero cost sharing for the beneficiary. And then in 2025, the big change is a maximum out of pocket for your drug costs will be $2,000, and that'll be inflation adjusted after that. There's also a new monthly maximum out of pocket starting in 2025, and this is going to be an election where the individual will have the option to elect whether they want to use this new monthly maximum out of pocket, and it would basically smooth out their costs for the year from the drug plan, so they're not paying a big portion up front in the beginning of the year and then down to zero. So that's another option coming in 2025. And then starting in 26, this is actually starting sooner, but the actual implementation of the negotiation and the pricing adjustments will start in 2026 for drug pricing negotiations. So we're going to talk about these two sections in further detail. So these slides I've used in the past, and there's videos out there, I'll link to them up top here, where you can see the full detailed analysis on how Part D of Medicare works, and it walks through this in detail. I'm not going to do that here today because you can watch the other video, but this is the structure of how Part D works today with these 4 steps: deductible, initial coverage, coverage gap, and catastrophic coverage. So this is coming up for 2023, the changes that are in the other video. I wanted to start with this video though, or this slide, because I've used this in the past to show you what's changing from 2023 to 2024 now due to the Inflation Reduction Act. The big change is for folks that reach this catastrophic level starting in 2024, they're going to pay $0 for their drugs once they reach catastrophic. In prior years, it was 5% the cost of the drug, and there was no maximum out of pocket. But starting in 2024, once they hit that catastrophic, they're done for the year. They don't have to keep paying that 5% for their drugs. So that's one of the changes in this Inflation Reduction Act. Starting in 2025, now we've got a whole new structure here where we still have the deductible and the initial coverage level, but there's this new maximum out of pocket that's a true what the individual has actually spent for their medications, up to $2,000. So once they've exceeded that $2,000 starting in 2025 for their actual drug costs, they're going to pay $0. Okay, so that's one of the big changes that came in this bill. Previously, again, there was no maximum out of pocket for your drug costs. If you had expensive drugs, you keep having to pay for those medications, even when you reach catastrophic. But starting in 24, there will be a cap. And then in 25, it'll be an even lower cap of $2,000. And that's going to be inflation adjusted after that point. All right, so that's just a quick update on what's coming. Oh, the other thing that I mentioned earlier about the monthly max amount of pocket starting in 2025. So once you enroll in a plan, you're going to have an option to choose a smooth out drug pricing for the year. So if, let's say you have a drug that's very expensive and you're going to hit that $2,000 in between January and February, you know, a very expensive drug. So, but you prefer to spread that out over the year, you will have an option in 2025 where you're just going to pay, you know, call it roughly, you know, $175, $170 a month, for example, and you'll pay that for the entire year at a smoothed out rate rather than that big hit in January and February. So that's another change that came in this bill, is you'll have that option starting in 2025. Now, real quickly, I just want to touch on the drug pricing negotiations. There's about 40 pages of legislation that explains this drug pricing negotiation. I'm not going to get into a lot of that detail, but just at a high level, this chart from the Kaiser Family Foundation actually gives a good view of the changes in this bill. And specifically, the negotiation really is starting. Those drug prices based on the negotiation will start in 2026 for 10 Part D drugs, 15 Part D drugs in 27, and 15 B and D drugs in 28, and 20 B and D drugs in 29. So the difference between Part B and Part D drugs, Part B as in boy are the ones that you're generally getting administered by your doctor, like infusion therapies and you know, those sorts of medications, where the Part D drugs are generally the ones you're getting at the pharmacy. So starting in 26, there'll be 10 of those drugs. Should have the most expensive drugs, so the ones that Medicare is spending the most money on, are the ones that they're going to be negotiating down starting in 2026. So let's look at some of those drugs. These are the top 10 selling drugs for Medicare Part D. So this is just recent data. This does not mean for sure this is going to be the list, but I would anticipate the list will likely look very similar to this list for those drugs that are going to be negotiated starting in 2026. We see these very frequently: Eliquis, Xarelto, Januvia, Trulicity. So these are very common medications we see for people that end up spending a lot of money on their drugs. So not only will you have a cap on your max amount of pocket starting in 2025 of that $2,000 per year, but starting in 26, these drugs will also have a lower cost, which may even prevent you from reaching even the $2,000 for the year based upon this negotiation. This list here now is the Part B as in boy drugs. So these are going to be those drugs, again, more like the infusion therapies, injectables, things that are administered by the doctor, will now be negotiated down as well, starting in 2028. So, all right. And that's all I wanted to cover in this, just to give you a little more detail on that Inflation Reduction Act and what's coming. We recommend, if you want to continue to get our updates, subscribe to us on YouTube. We've got over 50 videos out there with a lot of good content. That's where our latest updates come out. You can follow us on Facebook to get our latest updates as well. You can also go to our website to see our full workshop videos and a Part D review form, etc. So we hope you found this video helpful, and have a great day.